Welcome to the Leader's Edge podcast. I'm Sandy Laycox, editor-in-chief of Leader's Edge. In this episode, we talk with Dr. Alex Oshmiansky, founder and CEO of the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company, and Ron Harrison, vice president of business development for the company. They share the impetus of the company and how they got Mark Cuban involved. Apparently, he checks his Gmail, as well as their plans to create a parallel drug supply chain, including their own PBM and manufacturing facility. All of this done in the name of drug cost transparency. Give it a listen. Okay, I am here with Dr. Alex Oshmiansky, founder and CEO of the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company, as well as Ron Harrison, vice president of business development. Welcome.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for having us.
We're very excited to have you guys here. We want to hear all about the Cost Plus Drug Company, as well as some additional new developments that have been happening there. So let's get started. Just give us a little bit of information about the company as a whole, why you started it.
Oh, sure. So my background, so I'm a doctor. I'm a board certified diagnostic radiologist. And I was going through my training and saw multiple patients have bad health outcomes from being unable to afford their medicines. Actually, even saw a couple patients die from not being able to afford their medications. They weren't taking it, fell through the cracks. No one knew they weren't taking their medications because they couldn't afford it, and tragically passed away. That you would think that would be enough to set me on this sort of tirade for many years. But honestly, the straw that broke the camel's back. Do you remember Martin Shkreli, the so-called Pharma bro?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So back in 2015, just for anyone who may not know, he was a sort of a social media villain of the moment. He raised the price of a drug called pyrimethamine, by over 5,000% overnight, largely needed by indigent populations, patients with HIV, AIDS, other immunocompromising conditions. I just got very angry about that. And the next day, very naively, got some doctor friends together and said, we're going to start a nonprofit pharmaceutical company. We're just going to make drugs at cost, sell them at cost, and that'll be the end of it. And we tried. So for the better part of 3 years, kind of went around hat in hand trying to raise financing for that, and failed spectacularly. Did not raise a single dollar outside of what I put in myself. But eventually got connected with a group of venture capitalists in Silicon Valley who periodically donate to nonprofits, a group called Y Combinator. And they basically said, hey, we like what you're doing. We'd like to donate, but we do not think you will be able to raise enough money to get this off the ground as a nonprofit. If you reincorporate as a public benefit corporation, so a type of for-profit company with a stated public mission, will invest in you like any other company. And at that point, after 3 years of zero success, I kind of went, well, why not? Let's give this a shot. And to their credit, they were right. After a few months of working with them, was able to raise, what in pharmaceutical industry dollars is a small amount, a little over $1 million to get the company off the ground. About 3-4 months after that, I just cold emailed Mark Cuban. Believe it or not, he reads his cold emails from his fans and anyone who just wants to pitch him.
Oh, we'll give out that address later.
Oh no, I'm sure he won't mind. mcuban@gmail. It's all over the internet. If you have a business idea, I'm sure he himself will read it, not one of his employees.
Wow.
He is always on his phone. He donated a small amount to start with. And I think just became increasingly enthusiastic about the project and allowed us to dramatically increase the scale of our ambitions. Please go ahead.
Did he have, just one more question about him, did he have a otherwise interest in the healthcare or pharma space, or was he just really fascinated about what you were doing?
I didn't ask. I was going to just take good enough as it was, but
Fair enough.
I know he's done studies with the RAND Group on hospital pricing as well. So I know his interest is more broad in the healthcare space as a whole. I can't read his mind, but I think part of the interest here is this was very actionable. Like, this wasn't a hypothetical thing we could do if we got the right coalition together. Like, this was a thing we could just go out and do. So I think that was probably appealing.
All right, so you have built something. You called it earlier a parallel supply chain in the drug space. So tell us about how that works and everything involved.
Oh, sure. So the initial plan was to, and still is, to build a pharmaceutical manufacturing plant to focus on the manufacturing of particularly high-cost drugs. So generally, biologics, rare disease, orphan, specialty products in shortage. Um, but it very, very quickly became apparent that that wasn't enough. So we could make the drugs, but actually getting them to patients would be the hard part. Um, there are so many intermediaries in the pharmaceutical supply chain with their own motivations, with their own incentives that might not necessarily align with ours. So if we sold to pharmaceutical wholesalers, they're under no obligation to pass along the savings onto pharmacies. Similarly, pharmacy chains are under no obligation to pass along the savings to their consumers. And certainly, pharmacy benefit managers aren't under any obligation to have our products on formulary without paying them a large rebate, a de facto bribe, effectively, to put ourselves on their formulary. So we decided we were going to try to build all of that. So a parallel supply chain. So we are a registered pharmaceutical wholesaler in all 50 states. It varies by jurisdiction, but we launched our mail order pharmacy a couple of weeks ago and have had a sort of surprisingly robust response there, just a direct-to-consumer cash pay pharmacy at the moment. And we even started building out our own pharmacy benefit manager so that patients could access our products through insurance rather than having to do cash pay.
So let's talk about the pharmacy benefit manager a little bit, since that would be definitely of interest to our listeners. Just talk about a little bit about your goals for that, and then we'll go into some of the regs that have come down, the transparency, and your thoughts around that as well.
I'll start out a little bit about the goals. I mean, essentially, we will intend to build a full-service PBM. We will start with our Cost Plus Drug Consumer Pharmacy as an employer-sponsored program, essentially overlaying our pharmacy on top of the existing PBM product that exists to allow consumers to purchase those generic medications today at a much lower cost. And for employers to help drive traffic and savings to our pharmacy, we can create variable plan designs, lower co-payments, preventative RX lists, or any other mechanism to help drive traffic to that pharmacy. Over time, we'll contract with brand name manufacturers, single source manufacturers, and specialty drugs. But when we do that contracting, it will be all without any type of rebate or patient assistance program. So that net cost that we're acquiring it for is what we'll be able to sell it to the employer for.
Yeah, so I would add sort of the reason we started it was to try to add as much transparency as we possibly could into the pharmaceutical or pharmacy benefit manager space. So you go and you look at the revenue chains, the revenue sources for pharmacy benefit managers now, and they're incredibly complicated. So obviously you have spread pricing, you have rebates, and recent policy innovations have said 100% spread pricing can't be a thing anymore. Rebates have to be 100% passed through to plan sponsors, and the large PBMs have largely gone along with that. But at the same time, they've started adding other revenue streams, which plan sponsors don't necessarily see. So the big three PBMs set up so-called rebate aggregators. And these entities effectively touch rebate dollars first, take a cut of the rebate dollars, pass them along to their parent entities, and then the parent entity passes along, quote unquote, 100% of rebates. In the meantime, an enormous amount of fees, dozens upon dozens of fees have started to be implemented at the PBM level as a cost to the pharmaceutical company. And in some way, are those fees just rebates with another name? Potentially. Mm-hmm. Over a third of revenue at PBMs now is actually just their internal specialty pharmacies. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot of incentive to overspend on specialty because they are the pharmacy, which is, benefiting from that overspend. So essentially, we wanted to go into the marketplace with an offering, 100% transparency, reveal all sources of revenue, And not only that, but we pass along not just all rebates, we pass along all revenue that we see back on to our employer sponsors. Um, Now we would probably charge, either PMPM administrative fee or fee per script, whichever the plan sponsor prefers, and we would charge that, in our cost plus fashion. We will reveal to the public what it costs to run a PBM, what our salaries are, IT expenses. Our end vision is to pass along not just all rebate dollars, but all revenue dollars, fees, pharmaceutical effective rate clawbacks if we get those. Any source of revenue, we pass them along and just charge on a cost plus basis what it costs us to run the PBM plus 15% for our services. And, we'll kind of come up with that price annually depending on what our expenses kind of the previous year would be. But as we started to go out and try to build this, we went to pharmaceutical companies and we're like, hey, let's negotiate. Let's give us pricing on your drugs for our transparent model. And kind of the initial feedback we got was, we like what you're doing. We also don't like the status quo. We don't like the PBMs. Like, we do all the work, we do all the manufacturing, all the R&D, we take all the legal liability. Why did the PBMs get 15 to 30% of the revenue? That makes no sense. But at the same time, we are kind of bought into the system and, kind of the devil type of thing. Mm-hmm. So they're like, for us to take a risk on you, we'd like you to already have lives under management, a substantial number of lives. And we basically told them, in order to get lives under management, we need contracts with, you guys. And they basically responded, no one said it was going to be easy for you to build a PBM.
There you go.
Yeah. So what most new PBMs do to get into the business is they piggyback or white label existing PBMs and sort of advertise, their own services, maybe more transparent than other folks. But at the end of the day, they kind of have to rely on tapping into the same aggregators that are set up by the big three PBMs. So they wind up, and we would have wound up being essentially a layer on top of the same PBM rebate aggregators that, when you look at contracts with them, they won't tell you the exact rebates they're getting on each product. They'll break it down by like therapeutic class. But we wouldn't have enough transparency into that to actually pass along the transparency we wanted to our customers. So as Ron was saying, as our way of hacking this chicken and the egg problem, we started offering access to our pharmacy as an employee benefit. So your employees would go to, mark or costplusdrugs.com / your company name here. And all your employees would be able to order from us. We've been working with some consultancies and they've done some analyses, and it seems that we would, even with a $0 copay for your employees, we would largely save you 60 to 70% on your generic spend with our formulary as is, with only 100 drugs, which just goes to show like the level of markup that all these intermediaries put on even very cheap generic products. So that's sort of our starting point, 60 to 70% savings on your generic drug spend.
And we are going to add hopefully another 500 to 1,000 drugs over the next 6 to 12 months.
Are you working with brokers, or love to hear, are you getting into that space and all that?
No, absolutely. So we've had a real overwhelming response from brokers and consultants that want to understand the program. First, just really understanding a lot of what Alex is talking about today. What does it mean to be a manufacturer and a wholesaler? And then really getting into the pharmacy and how is it that they can access that pharmacy for their employers. And so a lot of the things that I've already talked about today and talking about with consultants is coming out of that community that they're asking for. And you can see a real demand for doing something different than what they're currently doing with their PBMs today.
Yeah, I know that for as long as I've been doing this has been a huge issue for the health and benefits space. Mm-hmm. And obviously, for all of us in America, we all see these drug costs, but definitely something that brokers have been struggling with for a long time for their clients.
Yeah, they're looking at any way to help save money for their employers and ultimately to the consumer. And so this is just one more strategy that we can employ. And then over time, we really will replace the current PBM system that they have today.
Are these coming from, I know you guys are also, I'm skipping around a little bit, but you're working on building your own manufacturing facility. So you will really be able to streamline that process. And I know that's in the works. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit and the role that that facility will play. And then I'm going to ask you another question about the kind of drugs that you'll be working on.
Oh, absolutely. I think the output of that facility to start with will be largely targeted towards the the inpatient hospital market. So we'll be making rare disease, orphan products. I like to say we make the drugs nobody else is willing to make. For example, pediatric chemotherapy drugs. Fortunately, is a very small market. Pediatric cancers aren't that common. But that also means that there's not a lot of incentive for pharmaceutical companies to dedicate supply lines to making drugs for that population. Fortunately, we're in a position, we do everything cost plus. We reveal our manufacturing costs, our salaries, our utility costs, everything all put together, and just put a flat markup on top of that. So it doesn't really matter what we make in terms of our profit margin. We really focus on what we can do to benefit public health the most. We'll have a dedicated space to make pediatric cancer drugs, critical care drugs, ICU drugs, certain specialized antibiotics that.
That's where I was going.
Oh, okay. I see.
Well, so we've done some work on antibiotic resistance and the fact that drug makers aren't really incentivized to work on some of these less fancy drugs and vaccines and new antibiotics. So is that for the sake of public health, will you all be focusing on those?
Absolutely, 100%. It's probably a little bit early for me to discuss exactly what we're doing because I don't want to announce something and then it doesn't work and we look silly. But we are talking to government agencies about potentially, doing exactly that, working on antibiotics for multi-drug resistant strains of bacteria for neglected diseases, particularly diseases which are neglected in the U.S. public health system. So we do have those projects immediately in the works right now.
That's great to hear. And just on another public health note, in reading about, sort of the beginning of the company, you all focused on some underserved communities and the struggles that they had with specific illnesses and the basic generic drugs that they couldn't get to help them. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that. And is that, sort of serving those with healthcare disparities, is that something that you all will be focused on?
Yeah, absolutely. So that was actually one of the big surprises for me from our pharmacy launch from a few weeks ago. So we were, focused on, approximately, 12 what I call ultra high cost generic drugs, where we can really save people a lot of money, even over, the best prices that come, like discount card programs. So, patients with chronic myelogenous leukemia, we have imatinib at about $47 for a month's supply. The AWP list price is $10,000 for a month's supply. And what multiple patients have told me is their copayment, it winds up being about $3,200 for a month's supply. AWP minus 90% sounds like a great deal. Your PBM gets you a 90% discount. Plus, their cut of the rebates winds up at $3,200. But if the actual cost of the drug is $35 for a month's supply, suddenly doesn't look like that great a deal. So I knew we would have a big impact on those communities. But what surprised me genuinely was the number of patients who came to us saying, oh no, I'm paying $200 a month for my statin. I'm paying $200 a month for my blood pressure medicine. I think we saw an employer showed us some statistics that, rosuvastatin was being adjudicated for $200 a claim, a drug we offer for $10. Mm-hmm. So even the employers are getting hit by this. And, if you just don't know as a patient that alternatives already exist, discount card programs, or even just asking your pharmacist for a cash price, if you just naively are told, okay, your, generic atorvastatin is going to cost you $200, and you just go, well, I know drugs are expensive in America. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, so I've been startled by the amount of outreach we've had by just those groups. And certainly I feel like there's some health equity issues there because I feel those who are more likely to overpay are those in communities which are underserved and do not have access to the same health information that other communities might.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to steal a final question from something that we heard as you were giving a speech to our folks at this legislative summit. Someone asked, What are the biggest threats to your vision? Because it is a great vision, and I think everybody is excited about it. So what do you think might be a barrier, and how are you going to overcome it for us?
Oh, sure. I'll give the same answer I gave downstairs, which is, we're trying to basically break up a oligopoly, pseudo-monopoly, and that is a very hard thing to try to do because I do imagine, probably right now we're too small for anyone to care, but, if we do start getting significant traction, I anticipate significant pushback, and it's hard to even anticipate what direction that pushback will take. I think the best we can do is try to form a coalition of parties who are affected by these issues. I think employers are spending a disproportionate amount of their revenue on essentially payment processing for pharmaceuticals. That is, $100 billion in the U.S. healthcare system, which could be put to a lot better use. Building manufacturing infrastructure in the United States, paying your employees to help retain them. The more like-minded people we can get who are saying, yeah, it's not worth it to pay $10 million a year for processing pharmaceutical claims. The more we can withstand the eventual pushback, which will come our way.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck. We're excited about the work you're doing, and I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you so much.
That was Dr. Alex Oshmiansky and Ron Harrison of the Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Check out the rest of our podcasts at leadersedge.com or wherever you get your podcasts.